All right, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Francisco Cantu and I'm very excited to be here with you all. Typically, we are live on Mondays and Tuesdays, David, Laura, and me. However, we started doing this thing 3 weeks ago on Wednesdays where we take certain components, the more exciting ones, the essay writing, the process of being accepted to colleges, filling out the extracurricular activities, all of those non-tangible, non-numerical components of the college application, and we do real-life reviews of success cases and pretty much components of an application that achieve the purpose of being accepted. So 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we did a review of a University of Chicago essay. And today we are going to do another essay review. I know last week David took over and he did a review of one of our best college age students who received a presidential scholarship. However, today we're going to go back to essay writing. However, instead of looking at a supplemental university-specific essay, we are going to be looking at the common application. I'm going to be breaking down some tips. I'm going to be breaking down the do's, the don'ts, and dive into a little bit deeper as to what matters with regards to the common application versus the supplemental essays before going on to expose a common application essay that was accepted to the University of North Carolina, Wake Forest, George Washington University, Emory, and that was waitlisted at the University of Notre Dame, and that was waitlisted at Duke University. All right, so that is what we are going to be reviewing today. But before we get started, if you can let us know in the comments where you are watching from and whether you are a parent or a student. All right, so please let us know in the comments what you are, where you're watching from, and whether you're a parent or a student. And I'm going to go ahead and share some of those comments right now. For example, I see Iskander A saying, hey, are digital SATs going to be easier? Well, they're certainly going to be different. I can't say if they're going to be different, if they're going to be easier or harder. What I would do is I always recommend official study materials, whether it's Best College Aid members get Kaplan study guides, and they get instructed on using free resources like Khan Academy through the College Board. So the more official and the more prep materials that you get that closely resemble the real exam, the better off you'll be. Again, once the first batch of exams are released and the first wave of students takes them and the results come out, we're going to have more accurate statistics as to how students perform in this particular exam. All right, great question. However, today we are going to be talking about essays. So I also see that Laura is in the comments saying, hello, everyone, from the Best College Aid account on Facebook. I also see that she's on YouTube saying, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. All right. So keep the comments going. The more that you comment, the more that you engage with videos like this, the more the algorithm's going to push them, the more that people with similar profiles as you are going to see videos like these, and they're going to learn a thing or two. It's going to help them. It's going to help us grow our channel. And it's basically going to make them more engaging, and it's going to be, that's the best way that you can support us and help us continue to make content like this to hopefully help you, help your students on the road to college, right? So let's go ahead and get started with today's show. Best College Aid. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, let's go ahead and dive deep into what the common application is. As the name suggests, every college and every university has a different portal or a different way through which you can apply to that university. Some universities might use their own particular websites, their own particular processes, while the other universities will use group portals or massive portals that are also accessed by other universities. And instead of having to write one long essay and manually input every single time what your current academics components are, like your extracurricular activities and whatnot, you have them all centralized in this account, and then the universities can access them through that main portal, right? So also, I apologize if you can hear my dog in the background. He is barking and he is going crazy, but that's because he's excited about learning about essays, I presume. But with that being said, that is what the common application is meant to simplify the process. Hundreds of universities use this portal, and a lot of people have asked me in the past whether there are benefits to using one application portal over the other. Certainly, there is the benefit of convenience of having everything centralized and then using one platform to apply to multiple schools. You still have to write the supplementals if necessary. But as far as the application, at the end of the day, the college admissions officers are going to see GPAs, are going to see essays, are going to see extracurriculars, and that is what matters, regardless of getting some sort of edge on whether you apply through the coalition application or the specific portal or through the common application. So I would put my eggs in the basket of crafting the perfect essay over focusing on little quick fixes like that. All right. With that being said, next up, the common application essays. Exactly. Now that you know that definition or that context for the common application, the essay, I'm sure you can deduct what it is and the difference. Well, basically, you have that longer essay. Supplementals tend to be 350, 500 words, whereas the common application essay tends to be longer in terms of the word count. You have 10 different options, typically around 10 different options that you can choose from, and you can write your essay, and they are meant to be viewed by multiple schools. You don't have to get as specific as we did when we did the U Chicago review. However, it is important to be very true to yourself, and there are a lot of do's and don'ts that are applicable to a supplemental essay that will carry over to your common application essay. Obviously, you don't have to name drop schools and you don't have to name drop professors and specific programs from a particular university through your common application, although some people use this strategy of tweaking it a little bit, but submission after submission for a specific school. However, the whole point of this is to get some sort of personal statement or knowledge on who you are as a person, and then use the supplementals to learn about the compatibility with the particular university. But if you can display a sense of compatibility, and that also becomes present or becomes prevalent when you make the college list, only applying to schools that will be compatible with your interests, then the common application should just be a test on authenticity and how your personal statement and your personal, ideals carry over to that of the university without needing to tweak it the way that you would a supplemental essay, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Let's go ahead and get started with the reading of the essay, okay? And what I want you to keep in mind before we get started is that I want to read it all at once, and then I'm going to go paragraph by paragraph. But we mentioned this earlier in the shows. 2 weeks ago, it was the first time we mentioned it. But basically, the acid test that will let you know whether you have a good essay or whether you have to go back to the drawing board is once you are done with the essay, once you're done reading it, you should be able to go back to the prompt, read the prompt, and in no more than 3 sentences, be able to answer that question. So as I go and read through the essay for the first time, I want you to keep the prompt in mind. Now, granted, with the common application, the prompts are easier to answer and it's easier to achieve these, whereas some supplemental essays might be more concise and more tangible with what they're looking for as far as an answer. However, it will still be in your best interest to, regardless of the essay that you're writing, answer the prompt. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and share today's essay from this student, okay? And as you can see, this is one of the most basic or most commonly used prompts for the common application, and it reads as follows. Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful that they believe that their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. So let's go ahead and read what this student had to say with regards to the prompt. Are you sure about this? My dad asked with an inciting yet skeptical tone. He really wanted me to do it, but he was also aware that my bank account was on the verge of becoming empty. It was a big decision, but my mind was set. I'm sure, I responded instantly. Then with a click of my mouse, I bought a ticket to a destination far, far away. As soon as the deed was done, I charged into my room to gear up for the event. As I scavenged my closet for the proper attire, I felt like a 10-year-old child during Christmas. However, it would take less than 24 hours for me to realize that I was not a child. That day I was a knight. How did I earn this title? By surviving a 6-movie Star Wars marathon leading up to the premiere of The Force Awakens. And although faking sickness and having to reschedule my midterms to attend the event made me feel a bit guilty, I knew that with my siblings accompanying me that night, the Force was indeed with me. I've always believed that films have a religious aura to them, in the sense that just like attending church, people can learn from the real-life application as long as they have an open mind. For example, when watching a battle scene in the third movie, Master Yoda was not just using force to spin around a massive pod before flinging it towards the evil emperor to look cool, but rather he was applying the physics concept of momentum by adding an angular velocity to a constant mass as a way to maximize the power exerted by the projectile on the target at the moment of collision. Similarly, I didn't perceive Emperor Palpatine's rise to power as just a cynical plot by a power-hungry tyrant to rule the galaxy, but rather as an allusion to Adolf Hitler's use of syntax and eloquent speech to fuel the people's fear and climb the ladder of political success. This marathon wasn't about aliens, but rather a subliminal recap of 12 years of education in and out of the classroom. I was not a nerdy kid watching a movie marathon, but rather a cultured man who juxtaposed sci-fi and reality. I am Luke Skywalker, not as a farmer leading a rebellion, but rather as a Mexican immigrant leading my high school swim team to states. I am Jabba the Hutt, but instead of collecting money as a gangster, I collect money as a class president for 3 years. I am Han Solo, but instead of earning wealth by smuggling criminals across the galaxy, I earned my wealth at age 8 by selling fruit at my local pool. After hours of galactic duels and unhealthy amounts of soda and popcorn, I began to realize that I've been living a non-glorified version of the lives of my favorite characters, except that Darth Vader probably didn't have to write a college essay to impress his master. And that ever since I came to the United States, I've been given all of the tools to accomplish my goals. With a mind impacted by over 15 hours of film, whenever I now think about my future, I allow my mind to envision conquests that may seem illogical to others. Feats like starting my own business or pushing for environmental reforms are goals that are just as seemingly unreachable to others as Luke Skywalker's dream of defeating the evil galactic empire was. At the end of the day, all goals are achievable as long as a hero is willing to step up. I spent 19 hours in the movie theater, ate 10 hot dogs, and drank 3 Slurpees. While I did end up with an empty wallet, I came out with the certainty that my goals of grandeur are not really that far, far away. All right, so that was the essay from the student. I'm going to give initial reactions, and then I'm going to go paragraph by paragraph and talk about it. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, the important thing, or one of the most important things to do immediately after reading an essay is going back to the prompt and seeing if you can answer it. Okay, so the prompt was that every student has a background or a story, identity, passion that is so meaningful that they believe that their application would be incomplete without it. So please share your story. With something like please share your story, it's easy to say that it was answered because you certainly shared a story. But what was it that what was the background of the student or interest of the student that is so meaningful to them? Well, by the end, we found out that the student, yes, it's an nerdy student that has all these history and background of things that they accomplished in high school. But at the end of the day, what they want to pursue is starting their own business and environmental reform. Those are the 2 things that they talked about at the end. And that is very meaningful to them, that even something as mundane as watching a movie marathon reminds them and motivates them on and makes them realize that they can achieve that, right? So in that regards, it was a good, it passes the rule of making sure that it answers a prompt after you're done reading it. Now I'd like to go paragraph by paragraph and talk about what was good and what could be improved, all right? So in the first paragraph, there's a very dramatic use of suspense. Are you sure about this? I'm basically don't have any money, but, the student was sure. Then he goes up and scavenges the closet. Very vivid use of words. Felt like a 10-year-old child during Christmas. Everyone has felt that way. So, instead of saying I felt excited, you say felt like a 10-year-old child during Christmas. So good use of vivid wording, conveying feelings. And then you get the plot twist that you realize that all of this dramatic buildup was not for preparing for a war or preparing for some sort of big trip, but rather just to go to the movies and watch a movie marathon and skipping school. So in that regards, I think it was captivating. The first few sentences get the reader's attention because you are thinking about this big dramatic climax that might be building up towards, and you want to continue to read to figure out what it is about. So in that regards, great start. Then moving on, I guess some admissions officers, depending on how serious they are, the type of institution you're applying to, could maybe be underwhelmed by the silliness, but others might appreciate it. So the student took a risk, um, thinking that the admissions officer will understand their sense of humor and that they're juxtaposing, a dramatic start with something that's a little silly. Also, they're also taking a risk saying that they faked sickness to skip one of their midterms to go to the movies. So if the student uses the rest of the essay to prove that they're a good student, and if they have good grades that the reader will see in their transcript and the admissions officers are going to see in their transcript, then this is a calculated risk that pays off. But if you're a student that has a low GPA, I would certainly not write about skipping school, right? Only do this if you have the sort of credentials to justify this and make it look like a not a big deal rather than something that contributed to your academic demise, right? So this seemed like a calculated risk that certainly paid off because the student was accepted to the different institutions we already listed out. Then for the next two paragraphs, the student does a lot of different things and uses a lot of narrative tactics. So the first thing that the student does here is basically adopts a narrative structure of I'm going to compare every single one and I'm going to demonstrate, not show, but not tell, but I'm going to show that I learned things at school, that I'm smart. So I am going to talk about what I learned in my physics class in terms of momentum and angular velocity and power exerted by the projectile, the moment of collision. So those are things that you will learn in your physics, AP Physics, AP Physics 2, AP Physics C if you took those classes. Those are things that you learn in those classes. So the student is using them in the context of, oh, yeah, I was watching this movie, but I was thinking about those concepts that I learned in class, instead of just saying, hey, look at these concepts that I know from a class that I took. Then, similar for history class, it compares one of the characters to a historical figure from World War II, Adolf Hitler's, and the use of syntax and speech to propaganda and fuel people's fears, and basically saying, hey, I also paid attention in my history class, right? So it's one of the capital golden cardinal rules of writing is show, don't tell. So instead of saying, hey, I know a lot of things from physics and history because I learned them in school, that's not exciting. That's boring. And they won't take you, or they might not believe you. But if you show them that you know those things by incorporating them into the narrative, then that is a creative way of demonstrating that you know those things, right? Then explicitly, just in case it wasn't clear, the student says very verbally, very explicitly, yep, this movie was not just a movie, it was a recap of 12 years of formal education, right? Maybe I wouldn't have used, if I could if I could tell the student what to do or recommend, I would say maybe not to use one of those overused SAT words juxtaposed. Maybe at a time it was good to know, but I remember by the end of the 2016-17, he was labeled as one of the most overrated words in essay writing, just because people wanted to sound smart and use these words that they would not use otherwise in their everyday life. But going on to the third paragraph, again, it's more of the same, but displaying a different concept. So here the student says, I'm Luke Skywalker, not a farmer leading a rebellion, but a Mexican immigrant. I'm Jabba the Hutt. Instead of collecting money, I collect as a gangster, collected as class president, Han Solo. So what I see in these first three sentences, and usually when you get to the third paragraph of an essay, it's easy to, especially if it's an essay reader who has been reading hundreds and hundreds of applications, they might get tired. So when you use something called parallel structure, like this student did here, you are making it easy for the reader to follow along. It has the same pace. I am Luke Skywalker, but not as this, rather as that. I am Jabba the Hutt, but not as this, but rather as that. I am Han Solo, but not as this, rather as that. And you're still using the same narrative device of taking a movie, compare it to, in this case, he's not talking about what he knows from his classes, but rather what he has accomplished in his extracurriculars and throughout their lives. So again, similar concept in terms of the tool of using something exciting like a movie and then applying it to telling the reader more about them. But they're doing so in a way that is, again, has parallel structure and is easy to follow along, and it sounds good. Good pace, similar pace. Then the student goes on to say, so this is another observation that I had. The student makes an attempt, and it's always risky to attempt jokes in an essay. Sometimes they might not land. Sometimes they might seem like a cheeky attempt to display that they're clever and witty. So, depending on the reader, this might have worked. This might have not worked. For after galactic duels and unhealthy amounts of soda and popcorn, I began to realize that I've been living a non-glorified version of the lives of my favorite characters, except that Darth Vader probably didn't have to write a college essay to impress his master. Again, try to be a joke. Some readers, I'm sure, would have found it clever. Others might have kind of rolled their eyes at it. So yeah, that's a risk that a student could take. It all depends on the execution. Typically, I would try. I would not shy away from being fun, and this is a fun topic and essay, but I might shy away from trying to be funny or overly funny on these essays, unless that is like the main characteristic of who you are as a person. If you're much of an introvert and it's unnatural to you, and the delivery might not be great, then I would shy away from it. So that's my only observation here. But it was not like an outlandish attempt at humor, but rather more like a meta observation, which some counselors advise against. So yeah, maybe if I could go back in time, I would advise the student not to have included this. But then they take ownership of their life and say that they have basically, they are aware that they have all the tools to succeed and accomplish their goals, which tells a lot about the dogmas of the student, and is promising, if you're a college admissions officer, to see, oh, this student believes that they have everything to succeed. So anything else that we add will be just a supplement, okay? So the final paragraph reads as follows. It says, with a mind impacted by over 15 hours of film, whenever I now think about my future, I allow my mind to envision conquests that may seem illogical to others. Feats like starting my own business or pushing for environmental reforms are goals that are just as seemingly unreachable to others as Luke Skywalker's dream of defeating the evil galactic empire was. At the end of the day, all goals are achievable as long as the hero is willing to step up. I spent 19 hours in the movie theater, ate 10 hot dogs, drank 3 Slurpees. While I did end up with an empty wallet, I came out with a certainty that my goals of grandeur are not really that far away. So using something that is iconic from the movie, far away, a galaxy far away. Good way to end it with a bow tie. So good thing there. I like the use of numbers. 19 hours, 10 hot dogs, 3 Slurpees. Regressing numbers, but you're still listing out things. So reads really well. I think the most important part about this essay, and something that would have made a huge difference between how effective and how good of an essay this was the fact that the student does share a final ultimate goal, which is starting their own business and pushing for environmental reform. And if there's an application that is read in the context of, I want to apply to this great business school, or this school that has a political science program or a public policy program, then this will be very effective at creating a match, even though there's not a supplemental essay, at conveying that the student will fit right into the school and will thrive at that school if it has, or if it is an institution that will equip the student with the tools to start their own business, or to study entrepreneurship, or to push for environmental reform through their extracurricular clubs or through their classes and offer degrees. So that's what I liked. Maybe the 15 hours versus 19. I don't know if the student was talking about 2 movies in, he had this realization, but it made a little bit of noise that they're different numbers. But other than that, those are my main views of this essay. I think that it makes sense that the student was accepted where he was and rejected where he was. And if I could go back in time, since the student was me, and this is my essay that I'm reviewing, 2017, 7 years later, 8 years later, there's a lot of things I would have done differently, a lot of things that I'm glad I did, decision-wise. So yeah, this was my essay. Hopefully, it wasn't as painful as I thought it would be to review it, but I figured it'd be a fun little ride too. The same way that, now that it's been 6 years, 5 years of reviewing other students' essays and giving advice and saying what works, what doesn't, I thought it'd be a fun little quirk to go back and see what I was made of and how I wrote back then. And yeah, there's definitely room for improvement, but also a lot of things that I think students even today can still apply to their own journeys and learn from, right? So that was my review of the essay. I want to share some free resources for you all. Again, today, Wednesday, and on Wednesday shows, we do the components of college applications that are more exciting. Again, the extracurriculars, the essays. Um, However, if you want to learn more technical things, or if you're looking for support on more technical components of the process, whether that is filling out scholarships, whether that is filling out the actual application, but in terms of the strategy of early action, early decision, lots of acceptance as far as percentages, then other than the content that we have on our Facebook, YouTube channels where you're watching this, we also have a free presentation on the 6 steps to go to college with scholarships. And that presentation is, I finished writing it a couple of weeks ago. It was recorded, and I dive deeper into the more technical components of what boosts a person's college application as far as percentages. So that is completely free to register for. You can check out the video in the video description of YouTube and in the text that is below this video on Facebook. You can click on it and you'll find the link to register. It's completely free. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. It's a lot of information, a lot of content that I share in that free presentation. And then for those of you who are looking for more personalized advising, because that is what Best College Aid, the family membership is, the family lifetime membership. The last 15, 20 minutes of that presentation, we talk about our program, but that is after an hour and 10 minutes of giving out value the same way that I've been rambling on for 30 minutes, hopefully providing help and valuable resources and information for you. So I do the same thing, but with more information and more than just the essay in that free presentation that, again, you can register in the description of this video. All right. So thank you so much, y'all, for spending another Wednesday evening with me. It is the highlight of my week. Thank you for your comments. Iskander saying awesome. Thank you, Maricel, for saying that they're watching from Lakeview, Connecticut. And yeah, I will be back here on Monday to do the 4-way live stream with Laura on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And then again next Wednesday with another component of the college application, or the tangible component that I'll be reviewing. Haven't decided if it's going to be an essay from one of our students that got into Harvard, or if it's going to be a college interview. Feel free to add your recommendations in the comments, and I'll make sure to keep those in mind before preparing for Wednesday's next show. All right. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Check out that free presentation, and I will see you all next week. All right. Have a wonderful end of your week.